and gentlemen, we're back again with our podcast. Welcome to Genesis, where the conversation begins. Hey, we got a great conversation today. We've got with us in the house, are you ready? The Reverend Frank Hawkins. Put your hands together. What a great time we had in our travels in the past. We've known each other for some time.
Yes.
And we're glad that you're here in Southern California on the West Coast, which is the best coast, from the East Coast where you are in DC or Virginia, wherever you live nowadays. But Frank, welcome.
Thank you.
And it's great to have you. And we're looking forward to having you speaking in our men's conference. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But And today we want to just talk about the issues about men. And one of the things that I appreciate about you is the fact that you come from a military background. And that brings with it a lot of things that resonate with a lot of men, particularly these days when men, some people would say, cultures don't really give us that positive godly masculinity, right? And so, as a minister who's had your foot in both the ministry and the Navy, I wanted to ask you first of all. You've served in the Navy and now serve as a pastor as well. And what has serving as a pastor and also serving as a military and Navy chief taught you about men's emotional battles? What has it taught you about men's wrestling?
Okay. Well, one of the things that I've learned through my years in the military and my years as a pastor is that men feel that they don't have a safe space. They don't have a space where they can be vulnerable. They look at vulnerability, or they've been taught that vulnerability is a weakness. So, and I can't show weakness. In my days in the Navy, if you were sick, you still went to work. If there was something going on, you still soldiered on, so to speak. There was no time of stopping. There was no time of taking a reprieve. You know, you have an assignment and you complete that assignment, which means that there is no time to recover, whether it be physically or mentally. Wow. And we can be physically tired. We know when we're physically tired, but a lot of time for us as men, we don't get the opportunity to know when we're mentally tired. And in a sense, we continue on. You find a lot of our brothers who have post-traumatic stress disorder, they found that if there's not a total recovery from the first event of PTSD, the second event is twice as hard. And it's the same thing with us if we go through a traumatic event, or if we don't feel that we've recovered from, let's just say, a traumatic childhood or something traumatic that happened during our lifetime. If we haven't fully recovered from it and we run into another situation, it doubles. Right. So a lot of men are carrying around several post-traumatic stress disorders, but not even realizing that they're carrying those things around.
Let me ask you, where does that come from, this sense in which we have to be a bravado and we have to kind of be strong? And is that still the case today when we have more men are sort of millennial men in touch with their feminine side and all the rest of it? Or you're saying that is still a challenge, and so is that from our fathers? I mean, where do we get that from? Is that from the culture?
It's a little bit of both. We're taught from our fathers that, I know when I was growing up, I grew up in the South in Alabama. You were always taught that men don't cry. No matter what's going on, even if you were being punished, I'm going to be a little country when I say this, right? Where I grew up.
Where you from?
I'm from Alabama.
You're from Alabama, y'all. So
we used to get whoopings, not spankings. We got whoopings with switches or whatever at the moment your parents could get their hands on. But if you cried, you were often told, if you don't stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry for. So as men, we're really never taught how to deal with our emotions. We're really never taught how to share what's really going on with us. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll keep that bottled up inside, and it has a very adverse effect on us as we grow older.
Interesting. And so your book, your training manual that we're so excited that we're going to be using that this weekend. Did it come out of that, the Joseph assignment? How does that resonate and link with those things you've been talking about? Is there a relationship between Joseph and the kind of men that we should be, a good role model? Is that what you got?
There is. If you look at the life of Joseph, you'll find that every man in some area of his life can relate to some aspect of Joseph's life, whether it be denied by your family, being called out by your family, being thrown in a pit, being accused of something that you didn't do, or even being forgotten about or incarcerated. Whatever the case may be, Joseph went through it. And each time he went through a situation, his garments would change. He went from being a favored son of many coats to being a prisoner, and then he went from wearing prison clothes to being a slave. Then his slave clothes were stripped away from him, and then he was sent to jail, and then all of a sudden he was accused of something that he didn't do. Every man at some point in their lives can relate to something that happened in Joseph as he went through life, from the time he was in the pit up until the time he reached the palace. So in this, the goal is that each man would find himself in the teaching. Find out where they are and find a way to come out of that place of which they're stuck, because you find some that are stuck in the pit and don't know how to get out. Some are stuck at being a slave but don't know how to be set free.
But isn't this idea of masculinity, bravery, and pugilism and warriorship, isn't it about kind of not wallowing in your emotions and getting out? So what's the difference between biblical masculinity that makes you want to survive against the odds, and also between that and not being sort of wrapped up in kind of mushy emotions? And
well, the thing is, right, God gave us emotions, and he gave us emotions for a particular reason. The thing is, we haven't learned how to master our emotions. As a man, the only emotion that we're taught how to display on a regular basis is anger. When things go bad, the first thing that we will do is get angry. So the goal is to teach men not how to resort strictly with anger, but to deal with what they're actually dealing with on the inside. Because what we found is that anger is a secondary emotion. It's not the primary emotion that we should be dealing with.
Right. So when we are going through challenges, right? So on one level, going to counseling and talking about it and kind of, talking around it and exploring your deeper emotions. Is that what we are? Is that how you deal with it? The frustrations. How do we actually deal with it if we're not to have anger and suppression, but also not to wallow in it? What's the path that we take?
The pathway is to face our challenges head on.
Right.
That's the thing. And if it takes therapy, then go to therapy. If it means finding that one friend that you can just share with, talk to that one friend. On a personal note, I've gone to counselors. I've talked with counselors. And I'm going to be honest with you, after having my conversation with the counselors or having my sessions, I felt better. That stuff that I was carrying on the inside of me, I didn't carry that anymore. I felt better after I was able to express the emotions that I was dealing with. I just didn't necessarily shoot right to anger. I found an outlet, and that's the key part. Sometimes we have to find an outlet that allows us to release that stress or release those emotions that we're carrying, and learning how to deal with those emotions. Again, having the conversations, talking with friends, and And from my perspective, that's one of the things that we deal with as men. We don't have that group that we're able to share with, and it's one thing about men is this: it takes a lot for us to trust you.
Right.
And if you betray that trust, then you don't have to worry about us telling you anything else again on a deep level, because we gave you that one opportunity, and you messed up that one opportunity. So, and I think that's the hard part: finding that group of friends that you can be authentic with, or finding that group of people that you can just be open with and not worry about the information being put out into the street.
So that's where the brotherhood thing comes in.
Right, like in the military, camaraderie. You'll find that military people have this camaraderie that's way different than you'll find in the civilian sector. I work for the Department of Army, even though I'm retired Navy.
The Department of what?
Department of Army.
Okay, Army, right.
Even though I'm retired Navy, but that's still that camaraderie. You have the camaraderie with those that are in the military, but you also have a subcategory of camaraderie between those of the branches of the service. Navy will always stick with Navy. Army will always stick with Army. The Marine Corps will always stick with the Marine Corps. There's that brotherhood, and you'll find that those who even shared combat together have a closer connection or a closer brotherhood than even their own families.
Right, interesting. So what are some of you've been in the Navy, you're working in the Army now, and also you were in ministry. What are some of the wounds that you've talked about that men need to face head on? What are the issues that are
some of the issues are
men?
Some of the blatant issues are not understanding who they are in Christ, first and foremost. And if you don't know who you are in Christ, anyone can tell you anything. And if you're not rooted and grounded in Christ, you'll follow that particular path. All right. So understanding who you are in Christ is the first thing. I'm a big proponent of reading our words, because I believe that every question that we have, the answer is in the word. And I believe in prayer. Spending that time with the Lord in prayer changes things, changes our perspective. I know one of the things that I do, the first thing I'll do to get up in the morning, is I spend the first 30 minutes of my day in prayer. That changes my perspective on the day, so, and I can tell when I don't pray, I can tell the difference between when I do pray and when I don't pray.
What are some of the other daily spiritual disciplines that are useful for men?
Just for one, be careful of those that are around you. Even be careful of the conversations that you keep with other people, because if you're not careful, you can be drawn into stuff that's not beneficial to you as you go on throughout the day. And again, to just be mindful of the wounds that you carry. Be mindful of the hurt that you carry. Because a lot of times what we'll do is we'll know we're hurt, but we won't go to a doctor. Or a lot of times we know that we have this issue going on, but we won't see the person that could help us be healed, or the person that won't help us through that particular situation.
Right. Is a church a safe place for men?
It should be, but a lot of times it's not.
It's not? Why?
Because a lot of times men don't feel that connection with the church, or they say it's not relevant to me. And stuff, right? So we've been working with men ministries for a long time. And for yourself, getting men to come in to really share, they need that safe space,
Yeah.
And I believe that once that safe space is set, then you'll see men come in and really start to share. And then you'll start to see true healing that takes place.
So a lot of pastors struggle, me included, to a lesser degree. My wife has a women's ministry. It flourishes,
right?
It blossoms, and they do all kinds of wonderful things. And men is like pulling teeth. Now, this is our first men's conference, actually. So, for the pastors who are listening, what are some of the things that pastors can do to make churches more of a place that men feel able to participate, and that is more conducive for the growth and spiritual health of men? What are some of the practices or some of the ways you would give?
One, give them a safe space.
What does that mean?
Give them a space where they can be vulnerable without their business being in the street, so to speak.
Okay.
So if I share something with you in confidence, I don't expect, for one, you to preach about it from the pulpit.
Okay.
Or two, you tell someone else and then I hear about it.
So a culture of trust.
A culture of trust, and I think that's really, really missing. You made mention of your wife having a women's ministry and how they, women have this natural ability to just come together. They'll come together over tea. They'll come together over knitting or whatever the case may be, or just to have a conversation. It's easy for them, but for us, it's difficult because we and something else I've found out about men is that we have to have a purpose. What is the purpose of me being here?
Right.
I have to have a goal. I have to have a specific assignment.
Right, and not
just coming.
Coming, right.
Right.
What's the purpose of coming?
Right.
Well, the purpose of coming is together. It's like, well, why are we gathered?
Why are we coming?
We're gathered here together.
Right.
Koinonia.
Yeah. For them, it's more than that. And you'll find that a lot of industries that bring men together have something to do with them working. Say, for instance, if you have someone whose house needs some repairs done to it.
Getting them involved.
Men will come together for that. They'll help with the roof. They'll help paint because it gets them actively involved.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And stuff, right? But something using their hands. That's where the fellowship comes in for us. Yeah. That's where the camaraderie comes in with us. It's just not us coming together, sitting in a room. We have to be able to put our hands to something.
All right. So, men's conference. Tell us more. What are you going to teach us this weekend about Joseph, and what can we expect from you?
Okay.
And it's tomorrow, starting tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to start out with identity. One of the things you know about Joseph is that he had a coat, and his coat was a coat of many colors. And somewhere in there, he found his identity in the coat, but the coat was stripped away. But his assignment did not change because his coat was stripped away. So just because something is stripped away from you doesn't change your mission, doesn't change your assignment, and it doesn't change what God has in store for you.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And so I want to close by saying that, and what do you hope for every man to walk away with? Is that what would you say your closing comments about the Joseph assignment? What would you like the takeaways to be? And besides what you just said?
I would love the takeaways to be a man coming in carrying something that he had been carrying a long time. But being able to walk out of there free from what he was carrying when he walked in, understanding who he is now in Christ, understand that his assignment is still set in spite of the fact that he may have been incarcerated, he may have been accused. The assignment that God has for him has not stopped, and God still has value for him, and God still has an assignment for him, even though he's gone through some challenges.
So in closing, complete this sentence. The world will change when men
find their true identity in Christ.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming. And
my pleasure.
We look forward to spending time with you and having you speak to our men. God bless you.
Thank you.
And see you next time on the Genesis podcast.